What's up, guys? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm your host, Robert Durden, and this is your a little bit earlier than usual political power rankings of lefty YouTubers. So I said I was going to give them like 2 weeks in between. It hasn't quite been 2 weeks, but some of these YouTubers are doing really great things right now, so I want to throw as much, compliments and shout-outs as I can. I think that's important on YouTube and on the left in particular. We need to support each other if we're putting out good content. So these are the people that I listen to pretty regularly. It's also why I like to do the updates on this, so you guys understand where I'm getting my information. And you'll also see along the way that if somebody puts out some bad stuff, I'll call them out on here, and I'll probably either reduce my listen time to them or I'll stop listening to them altogether, which happened with TYT and recently David Dole. I had to kick them to the curb because I just couldn't handle the way they were covering something. It was too subjective or too disingenuous, so I couldn't do it anymore. So here's the top 10. I did the top 5 last time, but I want to do the top 10 because I really do listen to more than just 5. And there were some people that I actually forgot last time who would have made the top 5. I just didn't think of them when I was making that episode. So the top 10, starting at the bottom, I'm going to do that from now on. It's more fun that way. Number 10 is going to be the Humanist Report with Mike Figueredo. He was one of the guys who got me into listening to lefty politics on YouTube. He was one of the first 4 or 5, along with TYT, Kolinsky, and, the Rational National at that point as well, Jimmy Dore. Those 5 generally were the ones I listened to like crazy when I first started, and recently I've had to kind of stop listening to the Rational National because of his defense of the squad, and of course TYT, exactly the same reason. Figueredo hasn't done that. He does great content. He used to do something like 2 or 3 videos a day. It's been a little bit less than that lately, but one of the things that he does beyond political analysis that's really good, and he covers everything, domestic and foreign, is that he always interviews all of the upcoming progressive candidates who are running for Congress, which is something that no one else does. But Mike he does great interviews, by the way, but he also generally gets all of the Justice Democrats to come on and talk about their platform, which is something that I don't think any other channel does. And if they do it, I don't think they do as good a job interviewing as Mike does. So Mike's number 10. He does a great job on the Humanist Report. Highly recommend to subscribe. Number 9 is a tie between Graham Elwood, or the Political Vigilante, and Jackson Hinkle. And his show's called The Dive. So Jackson, he's a younger guy like me. He does a lot of live streaming at night for sometimes as much as 2 or 3 hours. That's one of his things that he does that's kind of unique. He does a lot of live streams, which is cool. And he covers more or less the same stuff I do, calls out bullshit, anything that he finds interesting. He does a great job with that stuff, and he makes it kind of accessible for everybody. He kind of does what I do, which is make fun of dumb politicians for whatever they're doing. His show's great. And then Graham Elwood, same thing. He is, I think, friends with or knows Jimmy Dore pretty well. So Graham does a lot of CIA stuff, talking about the deep state, and his stuff is really, really good. He's also a comedian, so he's funny. And, I quite like his content. He just doesn't put up quite as much content as some of these other people I have ahead of him. But Political Vigilante, Graham Elwood, highly recommend. Number 8, I had these guys in the top 5 last time at number 3, I believe, which is Bree Joy and the Bad Faith podcast. I knocked them down a little bit just because their content's been a little lacking just in the last week. And some of the other people I moved ahead of them have done a lot of really, really great stuff since the last time we did this. But they, like usual, Bree does a great job breaking everything down. She understands politics as good as anybody, and she has a good way of relaying it in a relatable way to her audience. And she's also a wonderful debater. She doesn't come off as ultra aggressive, but she makes all the right points. She's great at that. Her show is awesome. So they are at number 8. Number 7 is a person who doesn't have their own podcast, but they're on a couple other podcasts, is Krystal Ball. She's on Rising with Sagar on The Hill, and she does a great job there, always has. And then recently she's also on a podcast with Kolinsky called Krystal, Kyle and Friends, and they do awesome interviews. Once a week they interview some juggernaut on the left. They've had everybody from Noam Chomsky, Bhaskar Sankara. They have Richard Wolff this week, which just dropped in my inbox today. I haven't actually listened to it, but that's awesome. A bunch of other people as well. Thomas Mann, Matt Taibbi, which that was one of the most interesting interviews I've ever heard in my entire life, was the interview of Matt Taibbi. So they do great work, and Krystal in particular does a great job defending her stances and has always done well on Rising with Sagar and getting her points across. So she's a national treasure for the left. Number 6, I forgot this guy last week. He would have made the top 5, I think. He's just out of the top 5 this week, but Richard Medhurst, does a great job. He, I think, lives in the UK, and he's a journalist, and he does a lot of foreign affairs work, particularly like Israel, Palestine, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and beyond that, he covers Russia, a whole bunch of politics you won't see anywhere else. And that's generally what I use him for. He and Abby Martin with the Empire Files, they supply me with a lot of my foreign affairs information. So Richie, and he's also edgy as fuck. He talks in a way that is very spitfire, and he doesn't give a shit what he says. He doesn't hold back. And that is something I hold in high regard. I don't like people who hold back. You know, there are some people that still made this list that try their best to like act, you know, as high class as they can. I don't care for that. I like people who yell into the mic. I just do. And I care very deeply that people don't hold back on their podcasts. Same with me here. So Richie is definitely, if you want to know about American intervention in other countries, Richie Medhurst is your dude. Number 5, GoodPoliticGuy. He was tied with the Vanguard here last week, and he still is putting out a lot of great content. His content's very similar to mine. He gets stuff out very quickly, a lot of domestic stuff, particularly with like how bills are being blocked or the interworkings of our system. And he calls out bullshit left and right. That's all he does, and that's what I try to do too. He and I imagine, have probably the most similar content of anybody on this list. He does a great job. He's also on Twitter, Mac at GoodPoliticGuy. Follow him on YouTube. He only has like 5,000 or 6,000 subscribers. He definitely deserves more. Number 4, I moved these guys up. The Vanguard. They were tied for 5th last week. I moved them up because they've done some great work with interviews this week. They interviewed Noam Chomsky, and they also are interviewing Bree Joy today, which I'm going to watch right after this. That's part of the reason I wanted to get this episode out, is to give Zach and Gavin a shout out. You guys are doing great work. I could have probably moved them up even further, but the 3 ahead of them are just titans. So great job to Zach and Gavin at the Vanguard. Their political commentary is not only accessible and relevant, but they're such relatable dudes. Like, you can tell they're not holding back. They're giving you their opinions without censoring themselves. And I love that about them. They do great work. Subscribe to the Vanguard. Number 3, Justin Jackson in the Takeover. He does great content, and better than anybody on this entire list, Justin calls out where gaslighting is happening with narratives that the Democrats are running with that are just false. He knows bills inside and out. He knows the interworkings of how politics works and procedure better than anybody, and he's like Richie Medhurst, like the Vanguard. He just doesn't hold back. And he's actually gotten more like that the more I've seen him do content lately, where he seems angrier lately, and he's really spitting fire. So I love Justin Jackson and the Takeover. I hope he runs for Congress one day, but his content is basically the best you can get in terms of that stuff out there. Number 2, Jimmy Dore. I had to move him up because he always does great content, but he had a video earlier this week where, I shit you not, he absolutely eviscerated Cenk Uygur in a way which I don't think he can ever come back from. He got a clip of Cenk basically arguing for Medicare for All, but not saying those words, or Medicare for All, force the vote, I mean, but not saying the words force the vote. And Jimmy just broke it down, and I actually shared the video. It was absolutely embarrassing for Cenk. And you can tell that he knows now in his heart of hearts that force the vote issue that he was on the wrong side of is going to haunt him forever. And Jimmy's double or tripling his live stream numbers and has been growing like crazy despite a very restrictive YouTube algorithm that really traditionally like stifles people like Kolinsky and Jimmy Dore, but Jimmy's still growing despite that because he was on the right side of it and he's been yelling about it, and what he did to Cenk earlier was an absolute train wrecking. That's why I moved him up. You can see the video on my I believe I put it on Facebook. I might have even shared it on Twitter. It was so bad, man. It was, oh dude, there's no signs of life from Cenk Uygur, and I don't think there's ever gonna be. Jimmy just euthanized him. Anyway, number 1 is Kyle Kolinsky. You guys know that. Unless somebody makes an absolutely massive couple of videos where they have some content that absolutely like blows my mind, Kolinsky puts up like routinely 4 or 5 videos a day, sometimes more than that. He works harder than anybody. He covers the right stuff. He gives great political opinions. I agree with him on like 90% of the stuff that he does, and he's one of the guys that got me into, you know, getting my news from YouTube and got me into politics. So, and also they're doing great work on Krystal, Kyle, and Friends, again, on Substack. I highly recommend you start listening to that or subscribe and watch their videos, because the interviews that they do on that show are always wonderful, always. So Kolinsky's number 1. I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, only a handful of these people can even take a swing at him. He's the guy in my book. Like, he's the guy. If I want a debate happening for someone on the right, Kolinsky's the dude I want on there. So it goes Kolinsky, Jimmy Dore, Justin Jackson, the Vanguard, GoodPoliticGuy, Richie Medhurst, Krystal Ball, Bree and the Bad Faith Podcast, Graham Elwood tied with Jackson Hinkle in the Dive, and number 10 is the Humanist Report. That's where I'm getting a lot of my info from right now on YouTube. There's some more than that, but that's the top 10 in that order. I will update them as they do good or bad work, guys. So hope you enjoyed that. Little fun. Leave comments below if you have a different ranking. Leave a comment, guys. I'll read them, absolutely. So keep fighting the good fight out there. Love you guys.